Hello, welcome back to the I Am in Women's Health podcast and evolution to your higher self. This is a show where ancient wisdom meets modern womanhood. Now, today's episode is going to be a little bit more personal, a little more vulnerable, and honestly, a conversation that I think so many women silently crave. And I will be joined by one of my beautiful friends, Anna, who is joining us all the way from New Zealand. And today we're talking about something that doesn't get discussed enough, and that is friendships. Female friendships in your theses and fees. We're going to be discussing things like, why is it so much harder to make close friends as we get older? Why do so many women secretly feel alone even when they're surrounded by people? And why do so many of us look at women who've had the same friendship group since high school with a mix of admiration and even a little bit of jealousy? There's this unspoken taboo about or around friendship grief, friendship changes, and the reality that many women hit their mid-30s or 40s and suddenly realize they deeply desire meaningful connection again, but don't really know where to find it. Between careers, motherhood, relationships, healing journeys, moving cities, personal growth, and evolving identities, friendships change. And sometimes we outgrow people or they outgrow us. So today we wanted to have a very honest, warm, real conversation around female friendships, the beauty of them, the heartbreak of them, the awkwardness of making new ones as adults, and how we can cultivate deeper connection in this season of life. Because women are not meant to do life alone. And so Anna, one of my dear friends, is here to riff this conversation out with me. Welcome, Anna.
Well, it's so good to be here, Harmony, and it's such an important subject. So I'm really looking forward to getting stuck in.
Absolutely. And hopefully we will be doing some more episodes together because we always have such great banter. I'd love for you to introduce yourself to all of the listeners. Who are you? What do you do?
Do you know what?
Why
It
do I know
depends on the
you?
day you ask me. It
Yeah.
depends on my answer. So no, hey listeners, my name's Anna. I'm one of Harmony's dear friends. We go back years now, and it was it's a unintentional friendship based on Facebook, really. And so it dispelled my belief that you can't make friends on social media platforms. So I'm a high performance coach here in New Zealand, and I help people get to know themselves better so they can live their lives, meaningful lives, the way they want to. I work a lot with men and high performers and athletes. So I'm looking forward to diving into this conversation because I think women can get so caught up in career and home life, and they can forget that that part of nurturing friendships is part of who they are and a really important part to be nurtured. So yeah, bring this conversation on.
Yeah, so let's just dive straight in there. I think why I really thought it was important to do this topic is not only have I had a lot of clients come into my clinic and just mentioning they're a bit lonely, they don't have like a lot of friendship network around them, they may be new to an area. And on top of that, I've also seen like a lot of posts lately in our community boards, like on Facebook, the area where I live, there's like these Facebook community groups. And it's sort of women sort of reaching out saying, like, I'd love to meet like-minded women, but I just don't know where, I don't know how. And I thought, yeah, you know what? It really is a thing. I don't know. And even for myself this year, I was like, I really want to connect deeper, have deeper relationships with my friends and feel really connected. And I think, a bit of my fault the last like many years, I've been like so headfirst into raising children, running a business, studying a master's. And so I have to admit my friendships probably did, go on the back burner a little, and I'm not proud of that. And I would like to reconnect, but obviously with the right people. So why do you think so many women struggle to make deep friendships sort of like in their late 30s, 40s?
I think certainly for me, I'm 48 now, and each decade there's a shedding of self. And so discovering who you are in this moment. And, friendships are a funny old thing. I live in New Zealand. Most of my beautiful home friends are over in England. There's an element of acceptance that I can't be a really good friend to them all of the time with that distance away. But the decision I made really early on with moving over here was nurturing the ones over there that I knew would be okay with not the everyday phone call. And because of that, 13 years later, whenever I go back, you can drop straight into those relationships and you don't feel like time has passed. But you have to create those connections, even if it's just a quick voice message or a little funny meme, or if you remember, for me, I'm always thinking about funny memories. And instead of just thinking of it myself, texting them and going, "Do you remember that time when you fell over when you were 7 and everybody laughed?" Whatever it was. So you're just nurturing those little bits so that you can pick up from where you left off. But I think, the difficult part of having friendships in our 30s and 40s is that we do shed, and our time is so very precious. So there are friendships that you can nurture and keep for lifetimes, but there are also friendships that you have to accept that were for a time in your life and you have to let them go, and that can be really difficult for us. So I think there's sort of quite a few different areas, but one is the shedding of self and understanding who we are through each decade. Secondly, there's a distance thing, and then thirdly, it's the time. And as you quite rightly said, when you've got a family and you're potentially working or you're running a business, it does mean that the limited time that you have has to be for the people that fill your cup, and you feel that you give something to them and they equally give something back to you.
Yeah, 100%. And you are really good at keeping the connections going. Like you're always, will send just a message, hey, just thinking of you, or a meme or something. And I think that's something I could definitely improve on for sure. But I notice you're really good at it. And I've got a few other friends that are quite good at it. Like we don't see each other often, but they will pop up in like Facebook Messenger or Instagram or something, just with something fun or funny to say. I also think, like, if we go back to talking about making friends, why some women struggle, is we're also in less organic environments. As in, I made a lot of the women that I'm still good friends with today, the group of nurses that I started nursing with in when I was 20, and I'm now 42 as well. So we haven't worked together for years, like so many years, but we still have a strong friendship because it formed in that workplace. And I think when you shift careers and been raising kids and you sort of find yourself a little bit on your own, a little bit more alone, it's harder to connect and make friends, especially if your kids are sort of like older. So you're not going to all the school events with the school mums, or I mean, depending if your kids play sport or not, like you can connect with some of those mums, but some not. So I think also the environment that we're in, we're often sort of more lone wolves, would you say?
Yeah, and that's a really good point as well, because, I think we wear different hats for different people, don't we? I know that I certainly have a different persona for my friendship with you, for example, than I would do my childhood friend. And so therefore, knowing who you are and what you bring to the table is important. But also, when you're making friends with people in your antenatal group, for example, they potentially wouldn't be the people that you would generally hang out with, but you're put in an environment where they're going to be your people because they're going to be going through the similar milestones to you, and that's going to provide support. And what I found through conversations with people here is that, your kids start to grow up and you've been friends with Janice from antenatal for the last 12 years, but all of a sudden your kids aren't hanging out together and you realize that you actually don't have anything in common, but you're going out to these drinks parties or you're going for these cold water plunges with people when you don't even really enjoy their company, and that makes them feel really disconnected. It makes them feel that there might be something wrong with them, and it makes them question, what who they've been hanging out with for the last decade. So I think there's, it is difficult because environments put us in places where we meet people, but would those people be the people that we would go to straight away for those deeper conversations? Probably not. And if you take our friendship, for example, we met online just through it was through Ayurveda that we met. And then it was very clear from the onset that we had something deeper than Ayurveda that was going to keep us connected. And now, 8 years later, we've got that stronger friendship, and we can phone each other any day of the week with either something funny or something important, and we can be there for each other. So that friendship is very different to perhaps a friendship that I had when I had my child 17 years ago. And I was forced into that environment. So I think for women who find it difficult to make friendships, it's looking outside the box and not closing your mind to where those people might be sitting.
Mm.
And look at the qualities that you've got. And when you are at your most vibrant, at your most open and warm, and work out what environments for you those parts come out in. And it's likely the people that you're going to gel with are going to come to those environments too. So, Ayurveda connected the two of us. Football would connect me with another mum potentially. But, if it was something else, then it might be harder to work out.
And I also think as you mature, as you get older, you don't tolerate as much in relationships, in certain relationships, and you have hopefully are more able to put in some boundaries, and that's with friendships as well. So friendships that you did once have, sometimes you realize like you go on such like a growth journey, especially, for probably the women listening to this, because this is really about Ayurveda, women's health, all those sort of soulful things that when we get into that sort of aspects of our lives, we are growing, like our personal growth is quite grand a lot of the time. And it's not that we're leaving people behind, but some people aren't interested in that personal growth and they're still stuck in trying to be who they were as teenagers. And so you naturally grow apart and you have more of a bullshit meter, really. So you kind of like, you know what, as we mentioned, we're kind of time poor at this age, and I don't want to invest my meaningful time into certain relationships because I know I walk out of those feeling really fatigued or really pulled back and drawn down. And I've had to learn this the hard way many, many times because I always give people benefit of the doubt. And I've always felt that it is my job and my duty to help support people, and I should be able to handle it all. Like I should always be able to nurture and support them, and that's what friends do. But sometimes I was realizing that it was at the detriment to my health, my mental health, my emotional health, and I wasn't getting anything in return. Not that like I wager my friendships on what I can get out of them, but I was constantly feeling depleted and not uplifted. And so that was a really hard decision to try to sort of transition out of some of those friendships as well. Even though I feel, modern women, like we can be a lot more lonelier than we may appear. And you would think that, okay, well, I'm just going to nurture all of the people around me as best I can. So at least I've got some friends. But it was almost better being a little bit more lonely. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it really does. And I guess for me to relate to that is the alcohol thing. So I gave up drinking probably 15, 20 years ago. And I can remember going to, it even happened this weekend actually. You go to social events and people are drinking, and that's absolutely all good with me. But then every now and then you'll get somebody who has the conversation, who comes to the conversation and will be intrigued as to why you don't drink, or even go so far as to ridicule you for not doing it. And for many, many years, I used to think there was something wrong with me, that there was something innately wrong with me, that I wanted to be at home in bed by 10 so I could get up in the morning and watch the sunrise. And it did, to your point, it made me feel really lonely. I was around people, they were really fun. It was always a good time, but there was something that wasn't truly aligned with me. To be honest, I felt that even through my teens, and I drank through it and would just end up feeling even more remorseful. And so now in my 30s and 40s, I've chosen to stand by what I believe in, what's right for my body. But there is that sense of disconnect. But when I go out with my friends, trekking and going for walks and hiking and doing sport and things like that, I never think there's something wrong with me, or, am I less than, or should I? I don't think like that. And so again, it comes to really understanding who you are, what makes you tick, the environments that are going to help you thrive and help you build those deeper connections, and allowing yourself to say no to the things like the parties on the Saturday night or the beers or the dinner parties that you know are going to end in, you know, strip poker, whatever it might be, you know, and being okay with that. And for a long time, I wasn't okay with that because I didn't have the confidence in myself. I thought there was something wrong with me, when the reality is that my tribe were just somewhere else. And I was actually at a wedding probably 20 years ago, and there was a triathlete there, and he wasn't drinking, and he would have been the only person beyond myself. And we had this really powerful conversation. And I said pretty much what I've just said to you about how I just felt like there was something wrong with me. Why couldn't I just get on the lash and have a good time with these people? And I wasn't fun. And he just absolutely put it to bed and said, no, it's just that you are trying to fit yourself, and you're constantly putting yourself in these environments where you are feeling like you are less than. But there's a whole world of people who don't do this. You're just not inserting yourself in that world. And that really was the first time that made me kind of wake up to myself and go, well, actually, you're choosing to be with the rugby crowd and this crowd that do all of that. And there's a whole other crowd out there that are not. So go find them and you'll feel at home. And that's what I did, and never looked back.
Yeah. And I also think like if you have a deep, well-respected friendship with someone or a group of people who do differ on different values to you and lifestyle choices, but they can respect your choices, it can still be a really beautiful, full friendship. I know
Absolutely.
for myself, I'm not a big drinker either. And my group of friends, specifically like my nursing friends, they know that and they 100% respect it. And I've always been quite good in social situations without having to drink. And I've been quite strong in
Same.
being able to be like, nah, is this not me? I don't need it. So a lot of my friendships that I've had for a really long time know that and completely respect that, because I can still dance. I can still have fun. I can still hold conversations and all of
Yeah.
that. I don't need the drinks to be able to do that. And so if they are all like drinking, maybe I'll have one, maybe I'll have none, but they don't pester me about it at all. And if I say, okay, time's up now, I'm going to go home, they know, they expect that I'm going to be the first one to leave. They're like, okay, give us a big hug. See you. Thanks for coming out. It was so good to see you. Like, it's just like, yeah, I'm just going home. Like, you know, it's just a known thing. And there's so much respect there on both sides. I love that they're out having their fun and doing their thing. And they love that I'm there with them and I'm still having fun. And I will go home to bed before 8 p.m. every time. So I
And
really
that is, I
respect
think you've
that.
touched on like the essence of deep friendships there, haven't you? Bang on.
Yeah.
If you've got a friendship that can celebrate who you are and not ridicule you and not berate you for making your own choices, then you know that you've got really strong foundation for friendship that's going to last those decades. Case in point, the ones that respect that I don't do, you know, I'm quite happy to go to bed early. They're still my friends when I go home to England, and, you know, it's powerful stuff. So I think, you know, it's that, yeah, aligning yourself with people that love you for who you are and not what you do is super important.
Exactly. And being like, these are my boundaries and this
Yeah.
is what I need out of a friendship and this is what I'm wanting to give from a friendship as well. I really want to talk about this sort of jealousy piece, or I don't know a better way to word it, but I'm just going to call it like this jealousy piece. And that is why women envy friendship groups who've stayed close friends since childhood. And like, if I'm honest, I did go through a bit of not envy at anyone specifically, but when I was looking at what I really wanted more out of for this year specifically, and I wanted deep connected friends, I wanted like really good, you know, friendships. I don't want heaps, but I just want connection, like a real connection with people that are going to be there, that are going to have your back, that are someone you can always talk to, that you can have fun with, you know. And I was sort of seeing that there, you know, different friendship groups that have been friends since school and childhood friends and all of this, and still close as like, you know, 24 hours memeing each other, that type of close. And I was like, yeah, like that would feel so special. And I think that wanted to understand that more. And I've seen it in a lot of other women have this sort of I guess, envy around that type of friendship. So what do you think that's all about from your perspective or what you've seen?
Well, I know from my experience, I've always been the one that's had heaps of friends, but
Mm,
in different groups. So for me, I can talk to a bit of envy. So I've always been very well loved. I'm really lucky to have solid, solid friends from my past and my present. But I guess the envy for me would come, or the feelings that I've had in the past have been, a lot of my friends went to university and I went traveling. And then I came home from traveling and I went straight into work at the age of 19. So I didn't have that university group. So I've been a bridesmaid numerous times and I'm so blessed to have been part of my friends' lives, but I was always the home friend. And so therefore the university friends, because they were a group, they seemed to be tighter and they had more memories, because I had childhood memories up until 18, and then they had all the, like, you know, those real formative finding your first flat together and that sort of thing. And I'm thinking in particular with two dear friends who are still my best friends now. They still go away together. Their families go away together. We don't have that. We have a different connection, but we don't have that. And when I felt envy towards friendships, that would be probably the ones I can think of. And again, it's because um, I think you can see how comfortable that they all are with each other and their husbands and their children. So they've almost got a family outside of the family. Whereas for me, I'm probably the auntie or the godmum. And that's lovely and it's got its role, but it's not myself and my family included in that. So that would probably be what I've noticed for my own personal um, experience. But again, if you're looking at it through the lens of all the part I had to play in all of that, is I've always been the one that's slightly outside of the group. So I'll be the friend that is there when somebody needs a favor or has got a problem or wants to have a laugh with, and they know that I'm always going to be there. So therefore, but I haven't inserted myself into one group and stayed in that one group forever. Does that make sense?
yeah, 100%. I also think, just reflecting on it, I guess with social media, like the rise of TikTok and Instagram and all of this, there's romanticizing long-term friendships as well. Because you see
Mm.
a lot of people, and like you said, families, say going on family holidays together, or they've always got their sort of like book club meetup or whatever as a group, and you just see that's what they're posting. And so there's this romanticizing of these long-term close friendships, and that's probably where mine came from, because like I said, mine, I didn't have any sort of one or any group in particular in mind. It was sort of more just this idea I'd had in my head, and I'm wondering, well, where did that come from? And it
Mm.
probably is like seeing these online relationships that, you know what, they might not even be healthy, because some friendships aren't actually healthy either. There can be a lot of codependency. There's a lot of things you don't see behind the scene. But like anything on social, we often romanticize it. And so I think that could also be like play a big role in how we feel as women in our late 30s, 40s, 50s, when we're sitting back going, where are my like good
Yeah,
friends
where's
that
my
I go
tribe?
to? Where's my friends I go to Hawaii with and sip pina coladas on the beach with, for the vacations, or camping with the families, like that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
I think, yeah, it's interesting. But I want to also shift the conversation to, why do you think, like, there's friendship heartbreak as well, and that's very real and it's not talked about enough, even though I feel that a true friendship breakup can feel as much as a heart throb breakup, or what am I trying to say? Like, as
Yeah,
much
like a
as
partner.
a romantic breakup, it's can be really, really hard. And there's sort of like that silent grief, because no one's like, if you broke up with your partner, they're like, I'm so sorry to hear what happened. But if you break up like with a friend, it's, I don't know, there's not really anything that anyone sort of says.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that is a big one that's not often spoken about as well. And I know that these breakups can happen for all different reasons, whether someone has crossed your boundaries and there's just sort of no coming back from that, or if you just naturally grow apart, or if, you start to have different viewpoints and ethical sort of decisions that you make in your life from one another, or you move away and you're not as good as Anna as sending these nice little memes and text every now and then. And that can be sort of like this sort of distant feeling and this heartbreak feeling. And it can feel really sad because you still have like these memories and that sort of grief of losing someone really close to you.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely experienced it when I had my son, actually. And the person that I was friends with absolutely adored her. I thought she was the bee's knees. We had so much fun together. And then we had our son, and we were the first in our sort of friendship group. Well, I had lots of groups, but we were one of the first to have a baby. For the first sort of little while, she was there, and then she started like peeling away a little bit and peeling away a little bit more, and I was new mum. I was figuring it all out because I think I probably had one or two friends that had in different groups that had babies. I remember exactly what you've just said, like feeling like somebody had broken up with me, but it was because it was slowly and there was no incident that created the breakup. It was just circumstance. It felt really, really heartbreaking, and I felt very lonely because I didn't know how to express it. I didn't know how to talk about it because it wasn't as if there was an incident that had happened. It wasn't like she'd cheated on me with my husband or something. And I can remember that feeling really rough. And even now, when I go back to the UK, I'll still see friends that are friends with that person, but I don't invite her, and I'm assuming she doesn't even give me a second thought, which is really odd, bearing in mind we shared so much of our lives together. So yeah, I think it is something that isn't talked about much. I do think looking back, it's a natural progression of life. Like if I held on to every single friend that I had, I would not be able to get a day of work done. Even my husband now, he says, Anna, your phone just never stops. And that is because I think connection's part of my DNA, and I know I'm good at it, and it makes me feel alive to be connected to people. But I think we have to be realistic in the amount of friends that we have, the stages, ages and stages. That friend for me brought out a really fun, vibrant, awesome part of my personality. But clearly, for whatever reason, going into parenthood with that friend wasn't going to be the case. And I think, yeah, it's like anything, the more we talk about it, probably the more people will come and say, oh my gosh, I felt the very same and didn't know how to put words to it. But there is no other word than grief. And in those situations where it is a gradual decline, I think sometimes it does leave you questioning, could I have done more? Was it me? Was there anything that I could have done? And they're all natural questions to ask yourself. However, I do think it's a natural evolution of being human.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember I learnt such a valuable childhood lesson when I was younger around friendship, and I have told my boys this as well, and it's really about always honoring the truth of how you feel about that friend. So when I reckon I would have, maybe I was like 10, and I had a next door neighbor who was a little bit older. So maybe she was, say, 12. And we lived on this land with a beautiful creek. And I was swimming with two of the other boys in the neighborhood, and there was a bridge that went over the creek. Anyway, my neighbor, her name's Jessie. So Jessie Canterbury, don't think you'd be listening to this, but if you are, shout out to you. Always looked up to you and loved you. But she was riding her bike to come and visit me, and she parked on the bridge. And I was sort of when I dove underwater, and I think she said to the boys like, "Oh, ask Harmony if what she thinks of me, like of Jessie, like just what kids are like." And so I wasn't facing her, did not know she was there. And the way that when I got up, the boy's like, "Hey, what do you reckon of Jessie? Like, she's a bit of a, like made it like, go along with it like she's a dickhead." And obviously didn't know she was behind. And I was like, yeah, she's such a, like, whatever I said. I can't remember. Yeah, I don't like her. Yeah, she's weird or whatever I would have said. And then they started cracking up laughing and she turned around and rode her bike off. And all I saw was her ride her bike off. And then in front of the kids, I was like, I don't care, whatever. Like, but then I went home and I have never felt so heartbroken, so full of grief. I was crying and crying and crying. I was so sad because I knew with every ounce of my soul that I did not mean that. And I was just saying it to fit in, to be cool, to like please the other kids that were there because that's sort of the vibe they were going with. And I learnt such a lesson to never speak shit, especially if you don't mean it. So always speak your truth and stick up for your friends and like be really honest about how you feel to them. If it is a like in a good loving way, let other people know that they're good loving people, like have their back. That
Yeah.
was like, it still makes me feel nauseous to think about that. But I'm so glad I learned that at like 10 years old because I've always kept that with me. I've told my boys, like, don't ever speak shit about your mates, especially if you don't believe it, like in the
Yeah.
first place,
Yeah.
because it will only lead to your heartbreak. And your friendships are so important to really nurture. So we did make up after that. Like it took a few days or whatever. She didn't want to see me that day. Like it was just so heartbreaking. We did make up, but yeah, I definitely learned my lesson with that. But going back to something you said earlier, you really spoke about having genuine connection. And you also mentioned have many friends that you have great connections with, but there's going to be people listening to this that don't have very many friends at all, if any, and they don't know how to create that genuine connection in their later years, like in their late 30s, 50s, 60s, so on. So what would you say helps women to create that genuine connection with other people to start forming relationships?
Well, I think the first thing is to know who you are, like know thyself. When I moved up from a different part of New Zealand up to where I am now, one of my good friends said, Anna, when you get to the school grounds, don't just dive in and just make friends with everyone because then you'll end up having to backpedal because half of them won't be for you. So just do yourself a favor and step back and just observe and just sort of see. And I remember thinking that's a bit odd, but also finding it very difficult to do that because it's in my nature to sort of go and say hi to people. But actually, it was one of the best exercises I did because it allowed me to observe you know, the the different types at school gates and to be where did I want to be in this new city. So I had to know myself. What did I want out of a friendship and what did I want to be as a friend? What type of person did I want to be as a friend? And just making sure that you know what you want out of a friendship. It's very different. These 40s, 50s is going to look very different. Your time is going to be different. If you've got a 3-year-old, you're not going to have as much time as when you've got a 22-year-old. So how much time do you want to allocate to your friendships and what sort of things do you want to do? And then if you've got hobbies, that can be the best way. Joining walking groups or book clubs seems to be a really popular one. And that can be quite an easy entry point because you're talking about a book over a glass of wine or sparkling water or something. And then again, there'll be people within that group that you'll lean more towards. So finding those community places, and that's where I think social media is so amazing because you can often dial right down into your area where you're living. And then be really open to meeting people in the most random of places. So I've mentioned a couple of times already that you and I met online. I wasn't looking for a friend and I got one of the best ones on the market. And that was just by connecting through Ayurveda.
Yeah.
Even I would go so far as to say joining courses. So, I joined the Ayurveda Alchemist in its infancy, and I've still got 2 really good friends from that course as well as Harmony. So, through courses, that you're going to meet people that have got similar interests because they're doing something that you are interested in. So courses, book clubs, community events, anything that is interesting to you, then you're going to find people that find you interesting at the same time.
Yeah. And I think once you do those practical steps of joining different groups, courses, so on, you've got to be willing to let the friendships build slowly, but also willing to invite and initiate things, friendship dates outside of that group as well. And it can feel
Absolutely.
so awkward, like as a woman in her mid-40s being like, hey, you want to be friends? Should we go on a friendship date? But really go, hey, like, I'd love to get to know you better. Like, do you want to catch up for a coffee? Like, I'm free on these days, and really sort of initiate those catch ups, I think is really important, because having a female community, so whether it's in those groups or you're catching up one to one, it's really important for women's health and nervous system. And yes, I am going to tie it back to women's health because I always do, and nervous system regulation. Because there's this really, beautiful way of co-regulating. We use these hormones of oxytocin, and it helps sort of nurture our emotional well-being. We as women, we heal in community. So it's really healing for us and for our nervous system if we choose the right tribe of beautiful women to surround ourselves with it and have that feminine connection, which can be missing in life. And it's something that we crave. And also just combating that loneliness, which does impact on our mental and our physical health. So having people that we can connect with really helps support our overall sort of mental health. Is there anything that you would sort of add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I just know how I feel when I get a wee little message from somebody that I love. Like, it doesn't have to be a big, huge gesture, but just knowing that people are thinking of you makes a bad day a better day, and makes a good day a great day. So, don't underestimate the power of connection. Um, having the courage to ask somebody if they want to go for a cup of tea, um, is is a big deal. I get it for a lot of people, and there'll be a lot of fear around, rejection or seeming vulnerable. I've moved countries 3 times now. I've traveled a country when I was 18 on my own, when there was no Google, there was no mobile phones. It was in my interest to meet people when I was on the other side of the world at the age of 18. And the way I did that was to be courageous and go up to people and ask them if I could hang out. And once you do it once and they say yes, then you'll do it again and you do it again, and you cultivate some really good relationships. The worst they can say is, look, I'm really sorry, I just don't have the time. And then you go, cool, okay. So know what it is that you're scared of and then do it anyway. And you'll find that you can create some beautiful memories and beautiful people.
Absolutely. And I also think being really open minded in learning about other people and being really open minded and okay if your values align, but not always your viewpoints. And that's
Yeah.
absolutely fine as well. I know a lot of, my friends, good friendships. We might not seem like the same sort of people on paper. Like we might have some great differences, but that almost makes it so much more exciting because you're constantly learning from each other and being pulled into their world, and that you're pulling them into your world. And it's like this is great adventure. So don't discount people straight up just because you think, oh, they're into, like, I don't know, they do pole dancing and I would never do that. Or, they wear Ugg boots to the shops. I mean, hey, I do that. But, just those little things. I wouldn't be seen with someone who wears Ugg boots to shops. Like, no, like, stop. You might find that you guys have this deeper soul connection over your fashion connection or over your hobbies connection. And that can be such a beautiful, nurturing friendship. And it might not be. But if you don't get to know someone and don't like give them a fair go and being open minded, then you won't know, will you? And
Yeah.
that could be your best soulmate that you've ever met if you actually gave them that chance.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like you look at the Spice Girls as the prime example of what you've just said. 5 women, all completely different characteristics. Yes, they were promoted that way. But you look at Sporty Spice now, she's still Sporty Spice. And you look at Baby Spice and she's still got blonde hair and is cute. So they've,
They
within
still
that
hang
group,
out.
they still hang out. You and I are very different people, but we connect on a deeper soul level and it works.
And when we come together, like what we do have in common is we love to joke and muck around. So we're usually doing that at each other's expense. So don't do that in a new friendship if you don't know their boundaries.
They do need to know, yeah, you do need to make sure that they can take themselves lightly if you're gonna.
Because of our differences, we're so often giving each other shit about different things. And like, I'm just thinking of memories now as I'm giggling because like it seems to happen a lot. And I
Yeah,
love it. Yeah. So
exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
And I
So
think probably the big thing for me is to, like, it's a big gauge, isn't it? Like, when you leave somebody's company, do you feel lighter as a result or do you feel heavier? And even when my friends are having a really bad day, I don't go, oh my gosh, they're so draining. There's still an interaction where it feels lighter. So it's not to say that you're not there for your friends when they're going through hard times, but there are people that you feel lighter around, and there's people that you feel really drained around. And that can be in a work context as well. And that is a really strong signal to your unconscious mind that perhaps this isn't as aligned as you think it is. And I think we're taught to be nice and we're taught to tolerate. And again, I'm going to extend that out to the workplace, but we're very instinctive beings, females, and tapping into intuition and going, yep, this feels right. And this person feels right for me. Generally, they are going to feel the same. They're going to leave you with a spring in their step. Likewise, there'll be people and you're like, yeah, a nice person, but just for whatever reason, didn't really leave me feeling that great. It's probably a good indicator that they're not aligned for you in that moment.
I absolutely think that is the number one, like 100% to that. I
Mm.
think that's the best way to round it up actually, because you're 100%. Do they drain you or do they, inspire you? And I think that's a perfect way to sort of sort out who you want in your little friendship crew and not. And in saying that, are you wearing my birthday present?
Yeah, mate. It's still in the boot of my car. I put it on purpose.
Like, I got you this birthday present. It's this like top I wanted. I loved it. And I think she's actually wearing it in this
I did it
interview.
on purpose. It's taken you 45 minutes to say it, but I did it on purpose.
It's because I was
I
like,
got
oh,
it
that's
sat in the
nice.
boot
And then
of
I
my car.
saw the little black thing, the label, and I was like, hey, hang on a minute. She's wearing my birthday top.
I'm
It
going to
looks
get off
good
this
on you.
call now and I'm going to go and put it in the post.
It's good on you. Oh, I love that so much. Well, thank you so much. I hope this episode has made you feel less alone because that was our intention. Like, just so that you guys know, you're not alone if you feel like you are lacking deep friendships, especially in your late 30s, your 40s, 50s, because it's a real thing. But we have to get ourselves out there and put ourselves out there with the best intention of manifesting the right friendships for us, because it is really, really important and it's worthwhile putting that energy and time into. So maybe friendships in our 40s isn't meant to look like friendships in our teens either. We've got to remember that. And maybe it is meant to be a little bit more slower, deeper, and more meaningful, meaning that we're going to have a lot less friends. And I'm so happy if I can have just a handful of close friends. So it seems to me that friendship in our 40s it's less about proximity and more about resonance. And as Anna was saying, like, how do they make you feel when you're around them? And maybe the friendships we find later in life are so meaningful because we finally know ourselves enough to choose them consciously. And I think that's sort of been the underlying message in this podcast episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you love this episode, share it with someone you want to be friends with or a friend that you do have already, just to shout them out. And if you would like to learn more about Ayurveda, then make sure you reach out. We have a lot of Ayurvedic programs going in the Ayurvedic Academy. We're also going to Bali in June. So if you do want to meet some people and find some deep connections with other women and maybe walk away with a lifelong friend, then come to Bali with us because it is going to be so amazing. It's the ISL Vedic Breathwork Practitioner Retreat that we are running. You don't need to be a practitioner or want to become a practitioner. You can come just to breathe and be with other like-minded women. And if you would love to have one-on-one coaching with the beautiful Anna, I'm going to let her tell you all about it.
Oh, I'd love you. She's giving me a little nod there.
Over to you.
Yeah, I offer hypnotherapy and traditional coaching online and here in New Zealand. And I would love to hear from you if you feel that you're just a bit disconnected with yourself and want to understand yourself better. What makes you tick? What makes you, get under the bonnet? We can do that together.
You know what? The hypnotherapy would be so good if you are someone who is thinking like, why can't I make friends? Or why does no one like me? You know, those sort of limiting beliefs that are stopping you from making good friendships. I think that would be amazing.
Yeah, hypnotherapy is outstanding. Some people are quite scared of it, but ultimately it's just you getting into a place where you're connecting into that part of you that just doesn't get seen. And then you answer the questions for yourself. And it's a real letting go. And it's a beautiful, beautiful process. And having been on the ISOL course and now facilitating it, I use a lot of the breath work to really help reinforce that connection to unconscious mind. So it's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Amazing. So my links and Anna's links will be in the show notes. Thank you so much. Until next time, see you later.
Ciao, ciao.